Welcome to 734 Games, and this is your host Tom. And if you like indie content, subscribe. And you can thumbs up, or you can make a comment, and you can suggest some indie content you may want me to cover, or you can thumbs down if you don't like indie content, and, well, you just don't like indie content. This is probably not the channel for you, but I'm covering Hellpoint. Hellpoint is a Souls-like by Tiny Build, the guys that brought you Hello Neighbor. And it's really fun. It's kind of a cool game. So it's not much different. I mean, one thing I like about this game is it's not like a lot of Souls-likes. They seem to really stifle your movement. This game doesn't do that. It's a little bit more like The Surge 2. That was another cool Souls-like. So let's check this out.
Ruchałki ciebie. Kikyros wy, vermuchał. Reszwy perchy, verpomry chychuj, są płykać rym. Berkarabem, bromusz moczyć, wreszwy perchy, bychu pożyczeniowania, nikczemna nowe.
As you can see, there is no English dialogue in this game, or no actual real language dialogue in this game. It was like something they were speaking Klingon or something. Anyway, basically this game, you're not going to get a lot. They didn't spend a large amount of money on this because it's an indie game, and obviously they don't have the budget for the big AAA style presentation, which is okay. It's still a good game at its core. What you have here is pretty solid. And I played this on Linux, and I actually switched this over to my Linux PC. What you're seeing is footage from Windows, but this game runs great on Linux, and it actually ran better on Linux, but that could be attributed to the graphics card that I have in my Linux machine. Like in my Windows machine, I only have a 1660 Ti, and in my Linux machine, I have a 5700X, which totally blows that 1660 out of the water, like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the game ran great in Linux, and you know, like some games that aren't. Well, this game is actually made for Linux, so that's one of the reasons it runs really good. But I don't know. I wouldn't attribute that to me running the game on Linux instead of Windows. I think what I think that is that I probably just had a more powerful graphics card in my Linux machine, and basically, I mean, I don't think it was the CPUs because I have a Intel CPU in my Linux machine and an AMD CPU and a Ryzen in my Windows machine, so yeah, I don't think that it was the CPU. It definitely had to be the graphics card. But the game runs good on the 1660 Ti, and I mean it runs great. It runs just like I didn't have any stutters or anything like that. You're gonna die a lot. That's one thing. You're gonna die a lot in this game over and over again. And there's some kind of cheap deaths because certain platforms are too high. If you jump off a certain platform that's too high, you just kind of die, which is, I don't know. It's kind of silly. I mean, you think they would just make it where you get wounded, but it kills you. I guess it's one way to add difficulty. And there's many very different enemies. You got, but mostly you have a bunch of zombies. But sometimes, like if you don't play the game for a while, and you come back later, you'll see a new large enemy in an area where there wasn't a big large enemy before, and you're gonna be like, it's gonna come and probably kill you. And the thing about the enemies in this game is they'll come upstairs and seek you out too, which is kind of cool. And if you die a lot, there's ghosts. Basically, what it is just like other Souls-like games. You have to, you find your little spawn point where you died or whatever, and you'll pick up your essence. Well, you have that in this game as well, but you also have ghosts of your character that come back and fight with you, and they're pretty relentless. But they're not that hard either. You can still kill them. At the beginning of this game, you're pretty weak, and you'll find weapons throughout, like most Souls-like. Just mainly a lot more like The Surge 2, where you'll die, and you come back and you retain weapons, which is kind of cool. I don't know if the Surge came up with that sort of thing, but that's what you have in this game, and I think that's pretty awesome. And other than, I mean, the backdrops look kind of cool. It's basically you should have an industrial gothic future or industrial sci-fi hell basically. But and most of the things you find are you find like a bunch of zombies or big giant, like, I don't know, cross wielding sword wielding statue type dudes that you're fighting, and just a bunch of other enemies you're going to find throughout the game. But the one big one that I ran into that killed me once was this big demon type thing. I know he had like hooves, and yeah, he was fast too. So I mean, don't expect to come in this game. I know it kind of probably looks easy here, and I would say that it's easier than Souls or it's a little easier than the Surge, but it can get hard too. It just ramps up. The way it does is it ramps up the difficulty slowly. So that's pretty much how this game is. But it's a fun, it's a cool indie game. Like I said, it's not. I got it for free on GOG, but I played it before. I played the demo before. But I mean, it's still. I mean, if you pay like $20 for this game, I could see this game still being a good value here. I have to say, early in the video, I said that Hellpoint was done by the guys who did Tiny Build. It was actually done by Cradle Games. It was published by the guys who did Tiny Build. So Cradle Games actually did Hellpoint. Sorry about that, guys. I try not to make those kind of mistakes here, but it happens from time to time. But what you have here is a good game still, and so probably a much smaller team than the team behind Hello Neighbor. But it's still a good game. Now it's on sale on Steam for $20, but it's a little bit more. I think it was like, I want to say it's like $35. Yep, it's $35 for Hellpoint, which is actually a decent price. So you're not getting ripped off. You're not paying $70 like you would. Now this game is also available, besides Linux and Windows, this game is also available on the Xbox and the PlayStation. So you can pretty much play it on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PS5, and the Xbox Series consoles. So you can pretty much get this game anywhere, and I'm sure it runs great. This game came out recently enough, so I would hope that it's somewhat optimized for those machines, because you got some games that aren't really optimized for those machines for some odd reason. And I guess it's because the developers don't want to put more work in them. And some of these developers are AAA games. Like, there's no reason that Ghost Recon Wildlands should look the way it does on the Xbox Series X. But, that's the developer. That's not Microsoft that's did that. Oh yeah, and the biggest surprise about this game is also available on macOS and the Switch. So that's pretty cool. So you can play this game on the go. I don't know how this game looks on the Switch. I don't have a Switch anymore. I just, I got tired of it, and it was just kind of collecting dust. I guess I'm just not. Maybe it's just because I'm too old for the Switch or something. But it just didn't do anything for me. I like my PC, and I like my consoles, my regular mainstream consoles like my Xbox, my PlayStation 4. Only thing is, like, the consoles this new generation of consoles, you got this artificial scarcity, and then you have all this DRM on the new machines. It seems like maybe I should just buy a laptop and have that instead. Have that as another computer. But obviously a laptop or even a small form factor PC, which is the size of a console, costs a lot more than a console. So maybe I'll probably still get my hands on a Series X. That's the one I really want, because I like having a disk drive, and the Series X definitely looks like the console for me. And I bet this game runs like stink on the Xbox Series X. It runs pretty good on PC. It runs great on the 5700X by the guys over there at AMD, Advanced Micro Devices up in Canada. And I mean it runs pretty decent on my Windows system. It's the only reason I put the higher specs in my Linux system, just because I'm a Linux guy and I love Linux. That's just the way I am. If you haven't checked out Linux and you play games on PC, you should check it out. You can do most everything you can do on Windows on Linux, and it's awesome. Only caveat to that is if you're a guy who enjoys his Games Pass, then obviously you're not going to get Microsoft Games Pass on Linux. That's just not going to happen. So obviously that's something that you'd have a Windows PC for. And I run those games on my Windows PC. Totally enjoy those games. A lot of fun. Like Games Pass. I play a few mainstream games, but mostly I try to stick to the indies. I mean, I've put up some Gears on here, at least Gears Tactics. I thought Gears Tactics was great. Gears 5 was actually okay. It was just okay. Kind of mediocre, especially for a big AAA. And then I tried playing Hive Busters, and I have a video up about that where I basically look at a load screen the whole time because the game just never plays. And that's pretty much it. This game, nope, this is an indie game, small company. It runs like it's supposed to, runs better on certain machines, on Linux. At least, in my experience, runs better on Linux. And it is a small, tiny team. It's amazing that AAA developers cannot get the same kind of quality. What is going on? I think it's all this DRM and all this other stuff they have going on, basically DRM and always online playability makes these games to where some of these games just don't work like they're supposed to. I really liked Outriders until, I had this really nasty crash one time when I was finishing a level and I killed the last guy. and I just kind of just backed away. And it seemed, I think maybe down the line, indies are going to be better than the mainstream stuff, or at least games that aren't made under the big houses. Hopefully, Microsoft bought a lot of they bought a lot of studios, so hopefully Microsoft will keep the quality up. Although, like I said, Gears 5 really wasn't the quality that I expected from a AAA. So we'll see down the line, won't we? It's going to come out in the wash. Now, with all this talk of DRM, kind of makes me wonder, what would happen if there was sort of a blockchain delivery service to rival Steam or Epic Games or any of these, these big storefronts? Basically, what it would mean, like indie developers, they could just sell on this blockchain storefront, and they would just cut out the middleman. There'd be no middleman. They wouldn't have to pay all these server fees the way they pay them now. But it'd kind of be like torrents, but with the speed of the internet, with the internet getting faster, and all the advancements that are supposedly coming, like quantum computers. Imagine a world like that. You got all this DRM right now, and you have all these different centralized storefronts. Imagine if all that disappeared overnight. Truthfully, the blockchain could replace these storefronts like Steam down the line. You can also use blockchain to track, DLC and other things that you buy from a developer. And I could even see it replacing, you have storefronts for physical goods. You have eBay, and you have all these stores. Imagine if companies could just sell them, sell it on take money through the blockchain and just send stuff to through the delivery service, like your FedEx or whatever. Service. I could see, eBay. You look at some of the things eBay does too, where they don't allow you. They don't sell adult games, and they don't sell CBD, which is legal in 50 states in the United States. And then you look at, you look at the DRM on, basically Steam is DRM, and you look at that, and I could see where definitely down the line, you could see smaller developers and smaller companies make a lot more money without having a middleman. But that mainly is just Better Tomorrow talk. If you've been alive as long as I have, you've been here, probably been hearing Better Tomorrow talk for a very long time. And we'll have to see if that really, actually happens. Because a lot of times when technology is out there, you hear, oh, this is going to do this and that, and it's going to be great. And, something stops it, or technology goes in a different direction, or whatever. We'll see what happens with that. But right now, we have a great indie market, and a lot of great games out there, a lot of small games. If you don't like what the big developers are doing, you don't have to give them your money. You can just play games like this and enjoy it, like I did Ari at Secret of Seasons last week. That was a really cool game. That's kind of like a Zelda, a Zelda competitor, and this game is more like a Souls-like, obviously, but those are both like really cool indie games that do pretty much everything that their AAA counterparts do. Obviously, you can see, obviously, like I said, the presentation here, well, it's decent, and the sound is decent in this game, the music is decent. It's just not, you don't get a lot, you can tell there's no voice, there's no actual voice acting or anything like that. So the game here, they actually did cut some corners. With Ari, they didn't really, that game, I could say maybe they cut a few corners with the graphics, but no, I don't think they really cut any corners with that game. It's like there's, all these games that are coming out, all this flood of indie is great for the industry. I love competition, and competition is what it's all about. And I hope the blockchain down the line can bring more competition, because the industry always needs more competition. It's not the industry is bad, but it'd be great even if someone were to bring out a console, although I don't think that would happen, because part of having a console is having your walled garden that people pay to play in. So, I don't see a big company making a console or a piece of hardware and then saying, okay, we're going to have this blockchain front end where you can just, buy your game from anybody you want who decides to make a game, and we're not going to take any cut. I just can't see that happening. Although, with the cryptocurrency, maybe if they kind of connect to a cryptocurrency, that could work. But in games, cryptocurrencies are kind of like a pariah right now, because some developers have used them for evil and not for good. And that's just how things go. And it's an exciting time for technology. And all you young people who are, witnessing all this cool stuff coming out, you're living in an interesting time. And I'm saying that mainly with technology. I don't really want to get into politics. I have before, but that's just not something I want to talk about, because things are pretty dark on that side. And that's just the way it is. But we still got games. And that's pretty much it for the 734 Games. This is your host, Tom, signing off from 734 Games. Gaming is alive.